You want to play? Let's play.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in with us for another episode of the Retro Achievements Podcast, where we cover a variety of genres, topics, and discuss the bits and bytes of yesteryear. With RA being around for over a decade, we have users who have gone the distance, seeing and contributing to the wheels of change in many shapes or forms as the years progressed. From what started as a small hobby amongst friends, has morphed and transformed several times into the community we enjoy today. One user in particular has been on all sides of this experience, from user to developer to active RA sanctioned tournament organizer. The good, the bad, the drama, and the success. Because when you put in that many years, you will be bound to have battle scars. For exactly that reason, I have my guest here today, Voice of Autumn, to dig in deep on their history with the website, the community, and some fun events we have on the horizon for all users to test their mettle in. Voice, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, Time, what's up? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Glad to have you on. Like I said, a big player in the community, somebody who's been here many, many years, and somebody as such I wanted to have on. You know, one of the things that I wanted to dive in on quite early is those early years that you got involved. But before we get there, just give us a broad overview for people who might not know you too well, might not be as versed in who Voice is. What do you do here? Why are you on this episode? Talk to me.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Voice of Autumn on the Retro Achievement site. People may know me as a player. People may know me as a developer of, I would say, a broad amount of games. Mostly GBA, but I've been all around the spectrum. I think I develop sets for basically every console that we support. And then there's also a niche little thing called the Retro Olympics that I host, making me some kind of event host, I guess you could say.
Just a small little thing.
Just a small little thing, but with a lot of work. And people may know me from hanging around in general chat. Maybe they have no idea what I do, but they saw my name. They saw me say some shit that they either like or don't.
No, definitely very active in the community.
Yeah.
I would say all those things are absolutely true. And even when I first got involved a handful of years ago, you were one of the first people I seen crop up in the Discord server. You're also extremely active on the forums. And as we'll touch on later in the episode, you decided to get even more involved by launching some of these ad hoc events, these tournament-based kind of let's get everybody participating thing.
Yeah.
Before we get there, though, like I said earlier, I do want to kind of dive in on these early days of RA. What did it look like when you first come around? How did you hear about it? How did you start saying, hey, this looks cool? What did that look like?
Well, RA has been around for a long time. Like, you in the intro, you said I'm a long-time member. For me, I still feel like a rookie. I'll be honest. There's been Wild West days. There's been very Wild West days. There's been prehistoric days. And I vaguely remember that I found out that Twitch had a retro section. All my life, I've been connected to retro games, emulation, that sort of thing. And what ended up happening was, I'm not even sure whose stream it was, but someone was playing Mario Golf for the Game Boy Color. Great game, great visuals, love that shit. I'm a huge Nintendo handheld lover, so I thought, let me check that out. And I noticed this person had a strange bar at the top of their screen, and it said something like clear whatever course it was within X strokes. I thought, what the hell is this? And I started reading chat, and people started talking about retro achievements. I've never been much of an achievement hunter. I mostly just played retro games because I liked them.
Sure.
I did the occasional monotype challenge in Pokemon. I did some challenges for myself, but I was never the type to actively hunt achievements or be active in that kind of communities.
Right.
So I checked out the link, I found out what RA was, and what interested me most was the fact that here it was an official way, or semi-official, to log your progress in retro games. Right? So instead of just saying or typing on a notepad what game you cleared, there was an official way that actually checked that you cleared the game and registered it through achievements. Kind of like the beat system that we have right now. So, man, that pulled me in. I saw achievement sets for all my favorite Game Boy games. I saw people talking. I was like, yo, this is some good shit. And what finished it for me is I've always been quite a competitive gamer. So I was a bit too young to do competitive games at first. Or when I was younger, I had no money. I hail from a relatively low to middle income family, so we had no subscription-based games. I wanted to play the hell out of World of Warcraft, but there was no money.
Wasn't gonna happen.
Right? I've explored every inch of old school RuneScape in free-to-play. I
was right there with you, man. I was right there with you.
Yeah, obviously now I've been able to delve more into the games I love. As you get older, you get access to more...
that whole thing called income,
Yeah, which is a lovely thing, I can tell you. But yeah, I was playing the famous game League of Legends.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, man, I still suffer from PTSD and addiction.
Oh no, we relapsed.
Yeah, back in season 2 and 3, I played I wouldn't say professional, but I played on a semi-high level, so I was actively being matched up with people that got paid to play or went to World.
Oh, shit.
I mean, it was the lower tier teams, obviously.
Still, I mean, it definitely speaks to the, later on in the episode how we, dive into you curating and organizing these competitions. Well, it's starting to get a little bit more fleshed out on the why.
There's definitely a base for it there. I'll save that for later, but I've also been extensively competitive in real life in sports.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, these were all components that, the puzzle was complete for me, and Retro Achievement just fit what I was looking for at that time, so I dived in as a player.
Yeah. No, I've never really been much of an achievement hunter myself. Likewise, I was just somebody who kind of enjoyed the retro catalog. These were games I grew up on and then just had a chance to replay them.
Right.
And just having the RA integration was another element to add to the enjoyment. If I got an achievement, I got one. If I didn't, I didn't. Okay, this is just another little bit of a dopamine rush that adds to the fun. Why not?
Yeah.
Beyond that, though, I do want to kind of take a step back. A lot of the times when I have guests on, either people don't know them and this is how they get to know them, or people only know them through their RA personality on the Discord, on the forums, for their sets, for what they've created or what they choose to play.
Right.
Taking a step back, what does voice look like in the day-to-day beyond retro achievements? Take us through a day in the life. Just a normal, nothing too exciting, but what does voice like to do?
Well, up until a few years ago, I was a marketing advisor, or I guess the job title would be strategic marketeer. I was educated to be some kind of middle manager in the process of media productions. So television, radio, digital print, physical print, etc.
Okay.
Which is kind of broad. So I started working for non-profit organizations because I felt like that was the most ethical thing to do at that time.
Sure. It does sound like something in that industry could get quite exploitative if you don't find the right way to use it.
Yeah, and the good thing is if you are educated quite broadly that you're not forced to stay within the industry. As an example, the television industry in my country is quite competitive.
And real quick, just for the listeners who don't know, where is that if you don't know?
Netherlands.
All right, the Netherlands.
Yeah, lovely place. I won't get into politics. Those are a bit less nice at the moment, but I guess that's a worldwide...
The television market is competitive over there?
The television market itself isn't, but the work environment is quite competitive and stressful.
Expand on that.
So what I mean with that is, and this is, I think, all across the globe, if you work in media, and especially live media like television, there's such a huge amount of work pressure to constantly be on top, to not make a single mistake. If you are in like the chamber that regulates which camera is on right now, and you make a single mistake, you might miss the important moment,
Right.
If you work in journalism, for television or online platforms and you don't get the scoop before the other party does, you're gonna get scolded. And I remember visiting one of the bigger broadcasting studios in the Netherlands, and we had an introduction day as students, and the first thing one of the CEOs said was, if you start working for us, you better make sure that you bring some handkerchiefs, because you will be crying for the first 3 weeks on the toilet every day.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So I quickly got out of that, and I was mostly aiming to work in online structures. But at the end of the day, I got a job at one of the big universities in my country for a newspaper.
Hey.
It was a newspaper of the university, and I kind of built the entire marketing and communication department.
Very cool.
Quit that job because bad work environment.
Also sounds like, one of those kind of schools is going to have a very limited ceiling in my experience.
Yeah, and also I would say that the average age in these type of companies, and this is a thing in nonprofit in general, is that the average age is a bit higher than you would get in a startup or, a more regular for-profit company, which also results in work structure being quite difficult, especially if you're younger. When you're young and you enter a new job, you come there to make a difference because you really think you can make a difference and you want to make a difference.
Right. You're not jaded yet to the world. You're really go hungry. You're
exactly.
A go-getter. Yeah.
You want to make an impact. And reality is that, at least in my experience in the past 10 to 12 years, is that a lot of people are stuck in their own process. CEOs have no reason to change anything because they'll get paid anyway. The companies won't go out of business because they're mostly government subsidized.
Yep.
Which is kind of where I was going to is a couple of years ago, I got into a pretty severe burnout, which was due to the frustrations that I got from that. But also I was working not just a job, but other stuff, including RA and other things. I was working, I think, 18 to 20 hours a day.
Just burning the candle at way too many ends.
Yeah, work, I was doing the strategic marketing. I was trying to build my own company. I was trying to work on RA. I was working out 2 hours a day. I was driving 2 hours a day. So
in this day and age, it sounds like you've gone through a lot of different employment experience here, all centered around that career of this strategic marketeer. And you've been exposed to a lot of different facets of the industry. But what does a day look like today? Let's say we're not trying to hunt down a new job. We're not trying to stress ourselves out. But what does it look like beyond RA?
I'm mostly focused on exercise and my personal relationships, I would say. So the thing with the burnout is that I'm not forced to look for work right now.
Okay.
So I got some freedom to rehabilitate,
right,
which is my primary focus. So I'm in the middle of some processes that do that, such as supportive therapy for your burnout. I'm looking for the right English word, but adjusting your structure so you don't fall back into the same mistakes that you used to make.
Sure.
So that's a major part of my day, just making progress in that.
Establishing a good routine.
Yeah, exactly. And apart from that, I'm a huge exercise addict. So I will be outside like 6 hours a day, playing sports, walking, running.
Huge advocate for that. Huge advocate for being active.
Oh, it's so good for you.
I'm sorry to announce that all the people who told you that being active for at least 1 hour a day would make you feel better about everything.
Yeah, and I sometimes, and I get some shit for that because I might say it in a crude way, but I often say to people in general chat to get out of their seat and go outside and touch some grass.
It's unironically good for you,
You need to do it, and you need to touch grass, you need to sniff fresh air, you need to lift some weights, you need to fix your diet, and your life is so much better. I've made a huge lifestyle swing 9 years ago, because I used to be addicted to gaming, addicted to sugar, addicted to so many things.
Oh yeah.
Shifted it around. Fixed my body, got my six-pack, got my, got money. Man, life is so much more enjoyable.
I probably jumped on the train about a little over 4 years ago, just before the pandemic kind of kicked off.
Right.
And just likewise, I used to run at my worst what I nicknamed the dopamine 500, sort of like the Indy 500.
Oh. Yeah.
And that it wasn't a good thing. I could make this loop around my town where I could hit Wendy's, a dispensary, and a soft serve ice cream place, all within like 3 miles, and then get back to my house. And I just called that horrible. Whoa, we're shoving down a Wendy's 4 for $4, a chocolate fucking sundae, and smoking bowls, and we're over here playing games. Are we really happy with our life? Are we feeling good about this? No.
It sounds just like the David Goggins story, right? Where he's at Shake. Man, you Americans all know exactly what he's trying to say.
It's either Shake Shack or In-N-Out.
Yeah, but that man is...
Hey, who's going to lift the boats? I'm right there with
Who is going to
Goggins.
lift the boats? If any of you or your listeners are not familiar with David Goggins, strongly recommend looking that up, if only to get inspired. Even if you want to sit in your chair and play video games, that man...
I mean, I admittedly, how I started was losing the weight, and I didn't exercise a fucking lick. I just sat in my chair and played World of Warcraft and ate less and healthier.
Yeah.
It was just a lot of chicken and salad. And it wasn't until after I lost the weight and realized, oh, now I look like a skeleton, that I had to do some actual kind of exercise.
Diet is the first step, and I've fortunately had multiple RA users reach out to me and ask, yo, I'm trying to lose weight. I'm trying to exercise.
Yes.
What can I do? Can you give me some diet advice? Man.
Likewise.
And it's great to see people trying to take control back of their life.
Absolutely.
I love it. Encourage it. It's
I can
great.
absolutely say, even if you're somebody who never entertained that idea of trying to get on top of your diet, maybe you're happy, maybe you feel great, you don't have any concerns about it, it's fine. Everybody loves some fucking Taco Bell, everybody loves some bullshit, you're feeling good. I guarantee you, and it's a hard thing to admit to yourself, the only reason you feel fine right now is because you don't realize how much better you could feel.
Oh, man. And I know RA is like one of the most diverse communities in terms of age, although I feel like talking about, because you asked about the old RA earlier, I feel like we had more active older community members 6 years ago or 6 years ago than we have now.
Yeah, I would say we're attracting a bit of a younger crowd these days.
Yeah, but if you're young, I'm relatively young. I'm 30 years old.
Oh, you got me beat by a couple of years. 32.
But, man, do not underestimate, especially once you pass like 24, 25, how quickly your body deteriorates.
But I mean, hey, it is likewise. If you get on this early, it is so much easier to conquer it early. Oh my God. If you start exercising at like fucking 17, 18, 20 years old, you're just going to watch the fat melt off of you and the muscle build up like magic. All it takes is routine and discipline. It doesn't take a lot. My workout every day takes no more than 20 minutes. And you're good to go.
It's like RA, man. I swear to God, because you start exercising and it's like that 100-point achievement, right? You're like, fuck, man, I don't want to do this. This is the most garbage challenge any shitty ass developer ever thought of. I'm gonna go to the forums. I'm gonna tell them
who dubbed this game? Yeah. Oh fuck, it was God.
Was it Voice of Autumn again with his shitty ass challenges? And then you start actually doing the challenge and you get frustrated because you keep failing and you can't get the weight up. And then one day you wake up and you can feel that bar lifting off the ground a little bit easier.
And you walk away with a shiny fucking gold mastery badge that says, I have obliques. I have an Adonis belt.
Yes.
I have six packs.
Yes.
Holy fuck. Yes.
The day you lift that weight a little bit off the ground, you're hooked. It's the best dopamine rush in the world.
The hardest part is getting started.
Yes.
Just getting started. Building that first 2 weeks of routine is going to be your hardest push. I guarantee you once you have those 2 weeks up and running, it's going to come naturally.
Yeah.
But guys, we got a lot more to dig on there. We got a little bit side tangential in. We discussed our passions a little bit, but it's good to know who we're getting to dig in on for our guest. That being said, we will be right back after this.
Bomb has been planted.
Bloody retro.
You are dead. Not a big surprise.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Retro Achievements Podcast, retroachievementspodcast@gmail.com for all that listener mail, questions, inquiries, or opinions. I'd be happy to read them out live on air and get an idea of what you all are thinking. That being said, earlier on the episode, we dove in on Voice of Autumn's experience with RA, how they got involved, where they were first exposed through the Retro Twitch channel. I believe it came out in 2015, so you've been around for quite the minute here. We talked a little bit about their day-to-day life, what they do for a living, how they've stepped through jobs that just weren't quite as fulfilling, and tried to move their expertise into nonprofits, into things that felt more rewarding, more fulfilling, more connected with their side of humanity that would decide a better future for everybody involved. And likewise, I think their experience at RA started off, maybe a little bit rocky, trying to find their footing. What do I do here? Who am I really? Am I just playing a game? Am I developing? And slowly but surely, they morphed into a little bit more. And Voice, I wanted to ask you, when did that happen? When did you start looking at putting on events? When did you start saying Retro Olympics as a concept? Maybe it was just an idea. Maybe it was just a tournament. Maybe it was just a one-off. But when in your RA experience did the Retro Olympics start to become a fundamental idea?
So it might be good to first give a bit of an idea what the event scene was like back when I joined RA.
Sure.
So to just take a small step back before that, because my journey was pretty much player into developer. Through becoming a developer, I gained some more knowledge on the community, how things worked, what we had, what we didn't have. And the main reason why I became a developer was because I was, obviously earlier we talked about the power of working out and the power of improving yourself. And improvement, certainly after I made that shift, has been a big central point in my life. So the main reason I picked up development, I don't have a programming background. And a small plug, if you are listening to this and you are on the fence about trying to become a developer, or you think you don't have the skills, or you think you're not fit to do it, I am not that smart. And I did a lot of work. Am I always as efficient? No. But at the end of the day, we have content for players to enjoy. So, man, pick up the slack, try your hand, enter the junior development program. We have tons of great code reviewers waiting for you to help you out. But for me, it was really excited to learn about scripting, programming, whatever you want to call the logic that we write on RA.
Sure.
So I developed my journey through that. I got graduated to developer. I still didn't know what an individual bit flag was, which would never happen in today's world. But Mr. Gauze, thank you. I love Brazil. Thank you, my Brazilian mentor. And Spory Tyke, of course, both my code reviewers back in the day. At some point, I wouldn't say I was done learning, but I had my taste of the technical side, right? Because my life has been very alpha subject related. So I did a lot of languages, I did marketing strategics. We were talking in our break earlier about how my job was basically thinking and talking.
Yeah.
So I come up with a plan, I fight the board of CEOs, and I think of a better plan, and I repeat that cycle. But I dropped math when I was 14. I dropped science and physics when I was 14.
Oh, wow.
Because it didn't suit me. I did theater, I did drama school, I did social studies, I did environmental studies. But the beta side of life, I'm not that smart. So for me, when I made that shift in life, it was really important to learn new things, and doing more beta things was part of that. So, coding on RA was the way to go. But at some point, you've seen most of it, and it becomes more of a chore than a learning experience, and you want to do something new.
I mean, I was looking through your development catalog here, and I was trying to find a theme or some kind of central root. And it's difficult. I can't place my finger on anything that jumps out to me. It looks like you, if anything, you might have a decent amount of fighting games, but it's not just that. You have a lot of also sports. You have open world games. You have these RPGs in here. What do you pick and choose to develop for? What gravitates you to these sets?
So initially, I mentioned all the way at the beginning of the podcast. I'll backtrack even a little bit more and give you a quick story. my parents used to be friends with a couple, and the man used to work at IBM, which is now Lenovo, I think. He was a programmer there, and
huge company.
Yeah, but I mean, back in the day, IBM was the big company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this man was on point, you know. He tried to learn me how to program when I was 5 or 6, and I just wanted to play video games. So I can't say I had any better connections there. I already was avoiding it at that age. But at some point, I visited him, and he showed me Pokemon. And like I said earlier, we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have gaming consoles or handhelds when I was young. I think my first gaming related item was a Game Boy Advance I got for my birthday when I was 11, 10.
Okay.
But way before that, this man all of a sudden showed me a video game that wasn't one of edutainment games that my parents would buy me, like Put Put or Freddy Fish.
All right.
bangers. But I met Pokemon, and I was like, hey, yo. I remember, are you familiar with the first generation Pokemon games?
Who do you think I am? Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of people that just think Pokemon fans are stupid and ignore it. But in Generation 1, there's this cool professor called Professor Oak, and he explains to you how the magical world of Pokemon works. And he says, this is a Pokemon, and you need a Pokeball to catch them. And I'm like, wow, cool. So little 5, 6-year-old me that doesn't speak English, by the way, and these games are all in English.
Oh, no.
Yeah, starts playing, and I'm like, a Pokeball for a Pokemon? Okay. So you remember how when you exit Viridian City towards Pewter City, and on the right side behind one of those trees, there's a Pokeball?
Yeah, it's an item you're supposed to pick up, yeah.
Yeah, but me not speaking English and just basing my life on the graphics of the video game is thinking, there should be a Pokemon for me in there.
No.
I didn't. Yes. I didn't know you could catch a Pokemon with a ball. No, I thought you had to get the ball and it would contain a Pokemon because I'm 5, 6 years old.
But I just found a Pokeball out and about. That's surely somebody dropped Pokemon. Mine now. Yep.
Yeah. So that was my entrance into emulation, and then this man pulls up Pokemon Crystal, and it suddenly has color. And now we're in Game Boy Advance emulation, because I would visit their place every year, and I would get provided with the latest goods.
I hate to cut you off, but I gotta jump in a little bit here.
Of course.
I feel a little bit of relation with you. My father had a job that took him overseas into Japan right at the release of Pokemon Gold and Silver.
Oh.
I was a huge fan of the one I had at the time was Pokemon Blue, so loved it. Oh my god. Everybody knows the cultural juggernaut that Pokemon was when it hit the scene.
Yeah.
So my dad flew to Japan just on a business trip when those games were releasing. And I believe they came out a handful of months before they did in America.
Yes.
So he picks me up a copy of one of them, flies it back, and I lose my goddamn mind. Are you fucking kidding me? I get it earlier than it comes out here. I can play. I can't read this. Okay. There I am, just trying to use the best of my knowledge from the previous game where I'm like, okay, so you gotta talk to a professor or something, and then you pick a Pokemon, okay, and then who's this guy behind the building? Okay, that's Gary, but it's like evil red hair Gary. Yeah. I don't know him. And yeah, so I was a kid and just like lose my shit. I don't think I could make it past like the first town because I struggle to remember it now, but I believe there was something where you would have to go talk to some specific person or drop an item off at a specific location.
Yes.
And there's no way you can fucking do that without reading the fucking words.
Yes.
But either way, I lived that world of like, I'm going to play Pokemon. No, I'm not.
Yes. And it's amazing how as kids, the way we experience games is so much different, right? Because now, even when we play the retro titles on RA now, newer games, you can be a bit critical. Oh, the storyline isn't as good. The graphics are not hitting the OCD need that I have that has been developed over years. I remember, funny that you talk about Gen 2 Pokemon. And I'm not a huge Pokemon geek, by the way. I'm not
Sure.
he who shall not be named or other RA users. But I remember that what you were talking about is you have to deliver the Pokemon egg to Professor Oak, who's hiding in a house somewhere. When you're nearing his house on the left side, there are 2 trainers having a Pokemon battle, and they're blocking the way. But, and I don't remember if this was Crystal or Gold Silver, if you talk to the trainer, the Pokemon Trainer OST will start playing. And that's a banger. So I would sit there for an hour just repeatedly talking to the cutscene, hoping they would battle and battle and battle, listening to the music. And that's one of the best gameplay experiences I've had on the Game Boy Color. Man, and again, you don't speak the language, so you're just going off graphics and music, which is...
I mean, that honestly, I would argue, music and things like that will translate the cultural barrier. Like, it's...
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think you've had podcasts in the past, right? About the power of music in video games. Small plug, click here, even though you can't click on my voice.
Go to episode
4.
Because I
Totally remembered the episode number.
can...
Did not add it in post.
Yes. But I'm sure you had a great guest.
Yep. Well, I do know I actually uploaded a video accompaniment to that one, unlisted. That being said, we have a lot of things that happened in your tenure. I'll just call it a tenure. You've been around here long enough.
No. It's 5 years. 5 years.
5 year. You've been around here long enough, and I want to kind of dig in. It's not something that the podcast gets too involved in often, but, you know, it does happen around here. You've seen your fair share of drama. You've seen your fair share of, you know, conflict. Also, that which comes with conflict is resolution.
Yes.
It doesn't always have to be a bad thing, but, you know, I kind of wanted to dig in a little bit. You know, I took a look at your profile. I noticed it might be ancient history at this point, but a pay spin from 2022. I noticed different grievances. I noticed different concerns, and I just kind of wanted to dive in. What are the shadows lurking over this?
I think, without diving into individual cases right away, I think in a project such as RA, there's bound to be drama. And the first drama that I actively remember is Salsa, who is obviously not as much as an active member anymore. And I wasn't around back when this happened, but I read up on the history a bit. And from my understanding, Salsa was more a fan of freedom in development and potentially games having multiple sets. And I think there were other reasons why Salsa left the site. But the point that I'm trying to make is, in a community as diverse as RA, and also people hate it when I say this, but I will repeat it anyway, RA attracts a certain type of person.
And what do you mean by that?
And what I mean by that is, I think RA attracts people that are very passionate, but I also think RA attracts people that are not always neurotypical. And as a result of that, it becomes harder to, this is my experience, overcome or see the other person's point of view. I feel like on RA, debates don't get... We were talking in our break also about how in the political landscape things become more extreme, right? Mm-hmm. There's extreme left and extreme right, and the middle ground where people try to...
It would often get obfuscated.
Yes, and I'm not trying to say that is the entirety of RA, and I think if you have good constructive feedback or criticism, which is also allowed, that the majority of people will try to do something with that if it's possible. But in debates, and these luckily have gotten less heavy over the years, it's often fire against fire. And the first one that I was a part in, and that's not related to the paste bin I posted, this is a little piece of RA history. We used to have a Discord channel called Hotbox, I think. And at some point, Hotbox was the channel where if you had a fight with someone, you would move there and do the fight there, so it wouldn't clog up the general chat. And at some point, they merged that with Off Topic, and the channel was called Hofboxic. The unfortunate thing is that at some point, people that have good intentions and are very passionate but don't converse those well or don't translate those well into valid points tend to accidentally get clumped up with trolls, which, creates even more tension and in turn more drama.
I do think it's unfortunate for those that, like you said, just have an unfortunate way of formulating their opinion. Might not say it as eloquently as they should, or just don't have the words to form the proper structure that they're looking for to communicate that impact.
Yeah.
And because of that, they get lumped in with like, oh, you're somebody's alt. Oh, you're a troll. Oh, you don't matter. I think there's a place for constructive criticism, but I also think there's a place for realizing that there's a good chunk of our community who's, one, English is not their first language, and two, we are probably, catering to, as you said earlier in the episode, starting to be a younger audience.
Yeah.
There's a reason I'm starting to skew the podcast in things that aren't as filled with derogatory slurs or swears or bad things, because my listeners might be 13.
Yeah.
It is something we have to think of. And I believe that if we want to be a successful community moving forward, that we kind of have to take that in stride and also just kind of embrace it rather than fight it.
Yeah. Well, and then translating that into your initial question regarding the paste bin, I think as a developer, but also as a player, there's also the ongoing tension between your vision as a developer and very different wants that players have. So some players want easy sets, some people want hard sets, some people want sets that they can play until they die because they don't leave their house.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Frankly, it is something that I'm from the player perspective, right? I don't have that developer role. It's not something I'm seeking at biting off right now. I do run the playtest team. I contributed to the RA News team. It's one of those things that the development role isn't somewhere where I could be adequate right now. Maybe it'll come in the future. But as it stands, there's a lot of other things I can add value to.
As a developer, you have to deal with multiple aspects. Obviously, at some point, I was a relatively highly ranked player and developer. I wouldn't say super high, but I was top 100 at some point, and I was the number one developer in terms of achievements made at some point. And to me, that metric is not very relevant per se. My working method is I choose a game that looks interesting, and then I make a set that I think would be enjoyable, or at least that's what I used to do. And hooking into that paste bin, at some point, there were a few groups active that I guess you could say did not like my work or my personality or whatever. I'm not the type to avoid that either.
Sure.
I like conflict. If I have to defend myself, I will verbally and physically defend myself if I need to.
Honorable.
But what happened was, if I made a set that was too easy, I would get reported for making easy sets that are too easy. If I made challenges that were too hard, or hard in general, I would get reported for making sets that were too hard by these groups. If I made a set that had 20 achievements, I would get reported for not making enough achievements. If I made a set that had 200, you can guess it.
Bloat.
Yeah. So, and I think this goes for any developer, and I'm not trying to take the side of developers here in the player-developer diabolical box. What's the good expression?
I have no euphemism for diabolical box.
No, I was just... Man, I had to think of Professor Layton and I just shouted something out, okay? It's the scale and the balance of...
justice.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing is sometimes I feel like some players think developers made a certain set because they thought, how can I fuck up the player the most?
I would agree. I'm not going to name names, but there are some of my most beloved series that I have a hell of a time playing and a hell of a time enjoying because the sets around them are so just torturous, just hard and not difficult in the sense of, oh no, I have to concentrate and really focus to get this done, but difficult in the sense of I have to dedicate a week and a half or 2 weeks specifically just to this. Like in this one achievement. At some point you have to ask yourself, are you even building achievements for the sake of challenge and enjoyment and accomplishment, or are you building achievements for the sake of how much can I torture the player and make them go through? And there's a threshold that I just can't oblige. That's why I feel no need to master a lot of these things.
Yeah, I get that. I think it would be very interesting to... I think you also did an episode with Suspect 15, if I remember correctly, on developers.
Yeah.
I would also love to talk with you for hours about set design.
For sure.
But I think at the end of the day, the most important takeaway from set design... Because I remember listening to that episode and listening to Suspect and giving certain dimensions within sets are made, right? Kind of like the rule set, which is already different than the developer land that I grew up in, because you had more quote-unquote freedom.
Right.
I don't think the dimensions that Suspect named are that restrictive. They are also meant to be more of a quality check.
I would agree.
But at the end of the line, I think depending on the developer, a set will be easier or harder because they have a certain preference.
Yeah, there's a flavor within the developer itself.
Yeah. And do I think a nice example is I developed... are you familiar with the Fire Emblem series?
Oh, absolutely.
Recently, I developed the Path of Radiance, which is the GameCube Fire Emblem.
Oh, I remember that being brutally difficult on its own, just on the GameCube alone.
I think the game was, personally, it was relatively accessible. But
well, it turns out I suck here, folks. You heard it now.
I am also a bad gamer at times, so we can cry together. But
I bought that game when it came out, when the GameCube was very new. That was my first introduction to Fire Emblem Beyond emulator.
Do you still have it? Because I think that's worth a lot of money now.
It might be in my basement. I'm actually not sure.
I don't know if it's also the NTSC version, but I know the PAL version is... I have it lying right beside me. It's worth some money.
It would be whatever was sold in the West, but if it is, it's in the basement and I should probably find it. And guess what I'm doing after this recording? Okay.
The thing with that set is there is some content in it for the trial. So trial maps within that game are like, once you completed the main game, you can play a single map. It has no storyline. It's just a random designed map with units placed that you can use the characters from your completed file on.
Okay.
However, if you beat Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, I think it's 7 or 9 times, you unlock the final boss as a playable character.
Does it get really weakened now? Hold on. Every fucking game you unlock the balls in, they get like balls ass weakened.
Yeah, there is. Actually, I'm replaying Fire Emblem 7 right now, which is the Blazing Sword, if I remember correctly, the English translation. There's an assassin in there called Jafar. And Jafar is like the unbeatable killer assassin of the Black Fang. Turns out, if you go through hell and use this very weak character that will get one-shot by Jafar, but you finally manage to recruit him, he's utterly shit.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's the classic SRPG trope.
Oh, yeah. What was that? There was a farmer kid in one of the Fire Emblem games. He wore a pot on his head and used a pitchfork.
Oh, the guy with the pot?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the 3DS games.
That's what I'm saying, though. If you recruited him and used him and upgraded him, he became your most badass guy.
I would wear that hat in real life. That's a fashion statement.
Give me a goddamn calendar. Let's go.
Man, God bless America and God bless our troops. But rotating back to Path of Radiance, so you can beat the game X amount of times, and it's a pretty big amount. More than you will replay the game to complete the entire set. You unlock Ashnard, I think, is the final boss. Now, in set design, you could say that's core game content, because it's in the game. It's not a challenge.
Sure.
Do I, as a developer, think that's suitable content for a core set? No. But I can guarantee you that there's developers that will completely disagree with me, and players.
Absolutely.
Will either tell me in kind words or unkind words that that's a bad decision.
I mean, at this point, content is an absolute buzzword. People cry content all the time.
Yeah.
It can be anything from, I believe there was something in Professor Layton where if you got the clock hour up to some ridiculous number, that Professor Layton grew a gray beard. And they insisted that, like, no, just because that bit flag flipped and he gets a gray beard, that's content. And it's like, do I need to sit on the fast forward button for a while and just walk away and eat a fucking sandwich while I get this achievement?
So the thing that I have always said and will keep repeating for as long as I do anything related to RA is RA, in my view, and I think that was the initial view, is for the community, by the community. Mm-hmm. And that means that all my work is open to get revisioned if the community pleases so.
Sure.
However, issue with that is that users tend to think that means I am entitled to do that work and change things that I don't want to do.
Oh, no. You can go ahead and undertake this yourself, my friend.
Yeah, I always tell people, try your shot at the role. And I should add to that, I think the current way of revisions is, I'm not happy with it, because I think limiting revision voting to only developers is not what RA should strive to do.
In your perfect world, what would a revision vote look like?
So I've been thinking about it, and I don't think there is a perfect system. What we used to have was a more open system where everyone could respond, and that has been killed by one or two individual users because they kept spamming the same request every time it failed, or kept DMing people with false informations to sway the vote.
Unfortunate.
And what I often say to people when I discuss this is I think we should, or a possibility is, I don't think we should do something, but I think what would be more suitable is a weight system where you open up the access to revision voting more. I don't know if we should open up the people that can initiate a vote, because there still needs to be a developer that puts through the...
Somebody will have to handle the actual code.
Yeah, the changes. But I would argue that developers can vote, and their vote is worth 3 points. Top 300 players' votes are worth 2 points. And I didn't do the math on this, right? I'm just giving random numbers, and maybe some people should be higher in the hierarchy. And
sure, ballparks.
If you are between site rank 300 and 1,000, your vote should be worth X points, and 10,000 plus is worth X points.
Sure.
People will argue that higher ranked players like harder challenges, and therefore we will always have a vote for hard challenges. I don't know if that's true. A good argument against my proposal is also that people often don't know what they want. They just want what feels good in the moment, which is also true. So I think there's never a good system, but I feel like for the... because people like to call RA a project, right? I feel like for the type of project that RA is, I feel like it would be more fair for the community itself if revision voting was more accessible to the public in general. And I think the only thing that, or one of the only few things that I think is a negative trend over the years, is that the community has less and less of a voice in certain core aspects.
Oh.
If I can name quickly, I can name some things that I love about the last few years.
Yeah.
Very big shout out to Wes Copeland that stepped up and made, and not alone, because we have a lot of people work on the website that you don't see. Most people think of Copeland, Jamiras, and in the past it used to be Luke Chaos. But there's tons of people on the web team that if you ever go to the GitHub, you'll see their name. I think Hexa Digital does stuff, Cero does things, Drisk does things, and there's many more. The web team has done great things. I think player base has, in its communication, gotten better overall as well. I think the tension between developers and players has been lessened.
I would agree.
So I think that administration moderators do a good job with that. I think DevComp in general does a good job of improving professionalism and quality, but I do think it came at a price, and I would like to see that balance restored a bit more. Obviously, like I was saying before, that as a developer, we have less freedom nowadays because we have those quote-unquote boundaries. And I think sometimes it goes over the top a bit. I wouldn't say I'm a fan of certain achievements staying in sets, but I also think, and I can't really name you examples right now because I don't have the website open.
Sure.
But sometimes there's, little references. The gray area where maybe it comes back a bit. The thing I said earlier about the type of people that RA attracts is also people that tend to see things in black and white.
No, that's understandable. Absolutely.
So yes, we have in the rules that glitches don't belong in core. But I would also argue that there's plenty of glitches that are very easily executable. And it used to be in the docs that those are allowed. But, this is just a metaphor. There's cases where there's a gray area and anything that's slightly gray will be put in the black.
Yeah, there's a little bit of scrutiny behind it, a little bit of we're going to analyze this until it can be categorized. It's a little bit disheartening.
Sometimes what I would say is it's just a website, guys. But I get it from the quality assurance and developer comp point of view that obviously we're going to dive into the Olympics later and the events. But I know that you have to be strict sometimes and you have to do things black and white. But I feel like sometimes we could chill out.
I mean, nuance is always going to be one of those things that's appreciated.
Yes. Yeah.
But that being said, folks, we already dove in a lot on what makes voice, but we have a lot more to dive in on. Next, we're going to chase down how they started these organizational tournaments, how they started to put on their own events, how they started to get their own web URL endorsed by Scott themselves. And we're going to do all that right after we get back.
Get out of here, stalker.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Retro Achievements Podcast. One more time, retroachievementspodcast@gmail.com. Send in that listener mail. Send in the thoughts, the questions, the observations, the people you wish to have on the air. I'd be happy to read your mail on live, and looking forward to your thoughts. That being said, we've had voice Mr. Retro Olympics on for this episode here, discussing how they got involved into RA, how they figured out their place, how they contributed, the trials, the tribulations, the successes, the failures, the drama, the way they've navigated that drama. And now, ultimately, within these last handful of years, we've started to look at ways to contribute in a more utmost capacity, a more fulfilling way. So much as so, if I could say, to get Scott on board, the OG man himself, to contribute an own URL domain for this own competition. We're going to start with, if I could voice, I want to dive in first on the Retro Olympic.
Go ahead.
I believe you started it with Zero. I would love to have Zero, if you're fucking listening, you better get your ass on this podcast.
Duo podcast.
I would love it. It was a project you guys set out trying to pioneer, I believe, in tandem at first. And what did that look like? Talk to me about the Retro Olympics when it was just an idea, when it was just two dudes hanging out, kicking around the ball.
Right. So obviously we're like 5 hours into the podcast now, right? Because people love listening to us. I said I was going to talk about the event landscape back then, and I never got around to it. So I'll start
We're
there.
Here now.
We're here now. So a long, long time ago, when Daddy was still your age... So events on RA, events team and them running really nice big events like they do nowadays wasn't really a thing back then. We had a couple of events, and I think I told you before, I was very competitive when I was young. Like, I would get into fights with my teammates. If I had the idea they weren't playing seriously, I would get angry that they were smoking after the match. I was like, what the hell, guys? We need to be in top shape. What the hell is this?
We're ready to whoop some ass.
Yeah, so... Events on RA, we had a couple of events. We had Achievement of the Week, leading into Achievement of the Month. We had Leapfrog. We had Retro Point Monthly, I think, and a few other competitions. Apart from video game music contest, which has been rebirthed the last few years, events had one major problem in my point of view, and that is that the question of the events was, who is the biggest loser? Who doesn't leave their house for 5 months?
Oh, no.
Who doesn't have a job? Basically, who invests the most time? I felt like as long as you dedicated your life to RA, you could win. If you didn't do that, there would be someone that would dedicate their life to RA and win.
I would agree.
There was no skill-based competition, and I was really missing that. So what people don't know is that before the Retro Olympics, I had actually submitted another event idea to what back then was the beginnings of the events team, which was a couple of moderators, which was kind of a Tower of God idea.
Ooh.
Where each day you could earn certain achievements and you would get rewarded for that. However, my initial idea was that you didn't have to complete all the achievements to win. Right? So if you played it well and if you strategized well, you could do the minimum effort and still perform as well as the person that invested 10 hours.
Was it like a point-based thing or like what?
The idea was like Tower of God. You all started on floor 1 and the person who first reached floor 100 was the winner. And there was a set of achievements that you could earn, regular achievements, and you didn't know what was hiding behind the achievement. So each achievement had a chest behind it. And if you got the achievement, then the next day an automated video would upload to YouTube. I was already making those videos in advance. And it would reveal what treasure was lighting behind that achievement.
So you've had these in-depth like unlock experiences for a while. You've had these community participation ideas, these things that are a little bit more elaborate.
I mean, that was the first idea, right? But at some point, I also needed a break from RA, and when I came back, I thought the idea is nice. It's still more of the same, because at the end of the day, if you did all 3 of the achievements, you would still get an advantage. And it was like a prototype.
But you understand this extra layer is still going the distance, right? Like
I mean,
that's still
like we said before, I have experience in marketing. I know that the last 5 to 10 years, your main product is experience and not the product itself. It's the experience you go through. I worked in the media landscape, so, I thought I could add that flavor by making a multi-dimensional event. But it still didn't fit what I was looking for, because I was really going for what would I want to participate in as a competitive person if I wanted an actual competition.
right.
So cue forward, I don't know how much time was in between, years, months, days, time flies when you're having fun on RA. Visit us at retroachievements.org. So my studies was media and entertainment management. And I was very close to writing my thesis on esports. So this was in the time when League of Legends was becoming a growing market. Esports was first making actual movements in North America.
Yep.
I had already written the entire first half of the thesis about how it all originated in South Korea, and the reason why esports originated in South Korea majorly was because the telecom network was so advanced there that it was actually feasible to do something like that.
There wasn't a place previously that it was. Yeah, like you're saying.
Yeah, so I thought, what would retro esports look like? And I started going from there. I didn't really research if there was anything similar because I wanted it to be an RA event. I thought, what would that look like if we did that on RA? And the premise for people unfamiliar with the Retro Olympics, which is the event that we've hosted for the past 3-4 years.
Yeah, dive in on this. That was the original question. That's what I want to talk about here. How did that get started? How did you organize this with Cyril?
Yeah, so like I said, I was thinking of what would an esports a retro gaming event look like. And obviously that's a tournament style event, right?
Sure. There's too many opportunities and too many genres. People were still trying to figure out what gaming in genres looked like in that developmental scene, let alone try to sequester them to categories.
Yeah, I wasn't even familiar with titles such as the Nintendo World Championship because I've never really, gaming wasn't really a thing in this country as much, I feel like. Obviously Japan and America, gaming big. Or maybe it was just the way I grew up, but I didn't feel like...
I mean, it's honestly hard for me to realize what's out of my own state borders.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that fucking pizza delivery wasn't common in every part of the nation that I live in until I left my state. And then I was like, oh my God, I can't... I'm a fat ass and I can't get pizza.
Hey man, we didn't have any cable TV until I was 12 or 13.
I mean, neither did I, but it was just because we were poor.
Maybe that was the same for me.
Yeah, there we go.
So fast forward, I had the idea of making a tournament, and then I decided, do I want a group stage, what games, blah, blah. But the base idea was very simple. There's going to be a tournament, people play against each other, best person wins, and they move forward. And if we do that across a variety of genres, then we'll have the best gamer on RA, right?
Sure.
Is Maximilian the best gamer, retro gamer in the world? I don't know. Max, I love you. You know that. I visit your stream often.
But can they put it up in the tournament sense?
But yeah, when are you going to compete, Max? What the hell?
Let's go, Max!
What the hell, Max? Sarconius? Hippo?
I love you, Max. I love you, Sark. Let's go!
Any non-untracked top player?
We'd love to. In all honesty, though, we would love to have you.
Oh, yeah.
Please. There's no bias. You come with what you bring. We're not going to say that you get honorary royalty status because of your top streamer and recognition. But if those skills measure up to par, and you truly can blow out the competition, we will sing your praises from the highest mountain.
Oh, yeah. And so I thought to myself, is the person with the most points on RA really the best gamer? Or can they just grind the longest, right?
I've noticed rhythm games seem to be... If you do rhythm games, I think the math was done once. If you...
I think Simjack back in the day used to have, I think he updated it like weekly or monthly. He would list every point per minute based on average stats. So you could just see what was the highest point per minute you could get in each game, and that was based on difficulty and other factors.
That's what I was saying, though, is like, I think the math was done once. If you mastered every rhythm game or something that was out there, you would automatically be within like the top 0.5%.
I won't get into my opinion on Super Mario World hacks because I'm gonna get killed by them all. But
I'm going to get into my opinion on Super Mario World hacks. Jesus fucking Christ, there's so many of them. You master one little tiny skill set here. You know how to do your spin jumps and your shell grabs and your fucking warp pipes and your all this fucking mechanics, great, and now you suddenly get to be in the top 1%?
Yeah, well,
now you get to... I don't understand it. Can you tell me, Voice? Can you talk to me, Voice? I don't get it.
No, because I've already had this debate, and Kaizo players will tell you it's not that simple, bro.
It is that simple, bro!
No, you're just a bad gamer. You don't know what you're talking about.
It's like saying once you learn how to drive stick shift car, every other stick shift car is different.
I mean, I get it. I feel like I'm not a Kaizo expert by any means, but I feel like each Kaizo game is like learning how to drive a new car. And
I literally just said, fuck that, that's the same.
No, but yeah, but what I mean is a car that works just a little bit differently. Like one car you're driving electric, the next car you're driving manual, the next car you're driving without any...
Power steering or something.
Yeah, exactly. Suddenly you're driving with nitro. Tracking back to
okay, everybody here who plays Mario hacks better be goddamn thankful for Voice. Yeah,
holy
be
shit,
thankful.
We love you, Skystar Mania, we love you, all the other SMW.
Hey, hold on now. It's not that I don't like the people.
Oh, yeah.
It's not, alright, it's not that I don't like the
We
players
don't want no beef in this house, okay?
No,
we don't
Super
want no
Meat,
beef.
bro, Super Meat, none of those people.
Yeah.
It's not that I dislike you. I just think you've mastered a single game genre. And motherfucker, you have milked that thing for all that it is goddamn worth. I don't want to dwell here too long. I already feel the red laser dot on the back of my skull. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the competitions you were planning to put on.
Yeah.
It is more of a single-person event, as far as I am able to ascertain.
Yes.
The Retro Colosso. Instead of competing on a team-based level, as the Olympics required you to do, you can test your own individual mettle. You can stand up and represent yourself. You can try to fight off all those who say you aren't good enough, you aren't strong enough, you aren't big enough to take on the competition, and beat those who say you shouldn't be here. But if you choose to climb the podium, the Colosso is for you. But Voice, talk to me about the Colosso. What do we have to look forward to as participants?
For that, maybe it's good to backtrack just one more time to origination of the Olympics.
Sure.
So, like I was saying, Olympics, tournament style, skill-based competition. I had that idea and I reached out to Cero because I thought I needed someone with some actual tech skill to find a way with me to validate scores and times, right? In forms of leaderboards. I was already a developer, but leaderboards I wasn't really good at. So I asked Cero, I said, Joe, I have this idea for an event. What do you think? What does it sound? Does it sound good? And if so, do you want to team up with me? Because Cero, he's not as active anymore, I feel like. But if there's one guy, Time, I will tell you that's genuinely one of the nicest guys, down to earth, normal, which is also scarce on RA. Man, I love that guy. He's one of the most...
He's around. He seems like a real dude. Like, I've never talked to him and haven't felt like I was just talking to, like, just a guy. Just like a regular real dude, you know, that's what, and I mean that in the most positive sense, a real dude, just a regular guy.
My heart goes out to him every day. I love him. But he said, yeah, that sounds really cool. I will help you set it up. Cero is a bit less expressive than me, I would say. I will come on this podcast and I will come again next week and the week after that, and I won't stop talking. Yeah, bro, you name a subject, I'll be
You're
there.
here.
If people want me here, I'll be here. But you might get cancelled for hosting me. I hope you know
That's
that.
a fun time going down with the ship.
Yeah, I mean, you went down with the best, I would say.
It'll be a fun time.
So, Cero helped me out with the leaderboards, and I said, Cero, bro, you know what I would appreciate? If you would co-host the event with me and give commentary. And Cero was like, nah, I don't know about that one. And then I used my persuasive skills.
Ooh, little shifty.
Yeah, to convince him to help me out. And that backfired on him because because this is leading on to your you introducing the Colosso. The first Retro Olympics was an individual competition, and then over time grew to be a team-based competition. But the very first one was actually solo-based, and what we were doing was we were having 4 people compete at the same time, and then rank them based on their score. And getting first place would get you 9 points. Getting second place would get you 6. Third place 3, and last place 0.
I see.
And then you would move on to the knockout stage. What I ended up doing to Cero was, my life is turbulent. And we had the grand finals, which I think it was Game Champ, who for some reason she always wins. She was up against Tio Vellum in the finals. And we had Bendy Human against Hadura in the third place match. And a couple of days before that grand final, and we had like 7 games, which was big, a long-ass stream. And I DM'd Sarah. I was like, Sarah, I don't really feel as good. I think I'm gonna quit RA.
Oh, no.
I need a break, bro. I'm completely burned out, and I can't make it. And can you host the final?
Oh, no.
And Sarah was like, okay. And then the man killed it. He absolutely killed it. Like, he doesn't give himself enough credit. He always says, no, I'm not good on camera. I'm not good on presentation. He's handsome, too. I've seen him.
Shout out to those who are a little bit shy and a little bit, diminutive on themselves. Like, come on. Perk yourselves up. Give yourself some credit.
Yeah, he did great. But yeah, so over the years, transferred into a team-based competition. And we kept getting more and more feedback asking, Voice, when do we get the solo competition again? So I thought, we could switch it up every year, do 1 year team-based, 1 year solo-based. I thought, no. You know what? It already takes us like 200 hours to do just the prep for the Olympics. Preparing the media, preparing the teams.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of work. I don't think people have half the idea how much work it is.
I mean, I'm there.
It's a lot of work. And that is apart from the streaming times. But I thought, no, why not do that double and make another event? Because why not? So I started brainstorming because I thought we need to have a bit of a differentiation between the Olympics and the upcoming Retro Colosso. And I thought, okay, what are the core values that we want to maintain? Skill-based, tournament style. And now we came up with a competition. We have slightly changed rule sets where as an individual you don't have to play 3 games, but there's one big game that's do or die, so you have to win that game. The winner of that game moves on. However, and maybe this is slightly inspired by that Tower of God event that I mentioned earlier, looking back on it, there are smaller side games that you will also play that will earn you a buff or a nerf that you can use in the main game. So just to give you a quick example, let's say that the main game is Street Fighter 2, and the side game is Sonic, and you win the Sonic game, and then the buff becomes you get to choose the first character for your opponent, or the nerf becomes your opponent can only use punches in the first game, not kicks. That's it. We want another grand tournament. We spiced up the format a little bit, but now you can compete as an individual again. And we're still working hard to prepare everything, because it's a lot of work. But we're working on a new site, we're working on new functions, we're working on media productions. But it takes time, and I hope everyone looks forward to what we're coming with.
As somebody who's participating on this team and somebody who's trying to build the vision you're looking to create, I think we do have a great treat in store for the people that are being for. I do think it's going to be a good time. You know,
absolutely.
We have this one-off tying us off and giving us a little bit of satisfaction until the actual competition, the Colosso, kicks off here a little bit later. But the last thing I kind of wanted to dig in, boys, you know, when I have guests on, when I have people get on this podcast, when I have people, you know, give their opinion over the course of an hour plus,
right,
we inevitably start to identify with each other. We inevitably start to understand each other a little bit more, and we have an opportunity to kind of preach to the community. So I wanted to talk to you, like, how do you feel about being on here this episode? What are your feelings about it? Like, dig in a little bit, talk to me about your thoughts. What does it mean to be on here? What do you wish to see in the retro community? What do you wish to see in the community? What do you wish people would understand? And just dig a little deep for me here and give me your thoughts.
Well, first of all, really love being here. For me, on a personal level, I wouldn't say per se that there's a lot of stigma around me. I think that's mostly around some individuals. I know tons of people that appreciate the work we do as developers, or me as an individual. But I think it also gives me a nice chance to show people who I actually am. I tend to put on a bit of a persona because
sure,
RA can be pretty rough. So it's sometimes better to protect yourself by putting up some persona and have people attack that instead of actually being your pure self. I also don't know if RA is always the best place for that. But, you know, coming on here and actually having serious talks, which is not always the case when you debate people or go in depth with people on RA.
Yeah. It's an avenue I'd like to have. Like, I think this is a valuable place to have those discussions.
Yeah, I think podcasts might even, which is risky territory, but, you know, maybe even having people, quote unquote, debate each other.
Yeah.
I was listening to that Suspect podcast that we mentioned a few times today.
Yeah.
And I often thought, I can hear where you're coming from, but as a developer that isn't directly related to DevComp, I don't know if I completely agree with this. Not that I'm saying I want to do that right now, but at that point I thought, oh, maybe it would be nice on the podcast to have people of opposite opinions.
I mean, I think that'd be lovely. To have people of opposing viewpoints with a reasonable and level-headed discussion, I think could only be constructive.
Yeah.
I do know I'm having Wes on again in December for a State of the Union type address. Oh. Yep, we'll get an updated picture of what the website looks like, what we are hoping to see for advancement features and things of that sort.
Very nice.
Yeah, so I don't see any reason why we couldn't have, Camp A and Camp B. The big thing I would ask for my listeners in that department is send me the people that you think could represent those camps. If you feel somebody would represent Camp A very well or Camp B very well, send me those listeners. And Voice, I would ask you to define Camp A and Camp B.
Oh man, it hugely depends on the topic, of course. Like I said, I think it would be great to have a podcast where developers and players meet on their stances. I think that would be a good way to bridge some of the gaps we have as well in the community. I think I said somewhere earlier in the podcast that, trust me when I say developers don't want to make a shitty set, they make the set they think is good. And on the other hand, I don't think there's a lot of players that will contact you with the intention to purposefully hurt you. They want to voice their concerns and see their favorite game or the set for their favorite game improve.
Right.
I would like to add that, not necessarily saying that you should have a debate on that episode with Wes that's upcoming. Wes has been one of the people the past 2 years that I've had the best talks with. Wes is...
He's done a lot.
Yeah, he does a lot, and sure, he has his moments where he's very focused on his own view, obviously because he's doing a lot of the hard work. But Wes is one of the individuals lately that has been very open to all kinds of feedback, treat you seriously, so a good conversation partner. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend every individual to suddenly DM Wes for everything. I know Wes likes every site feedback related thing to be posted in the site feedback Discord channel and not in his DMs, not on his site profile. So don't do that. So yeah, I think on a personal note, love being here. Would love to come again if there's topics that are relevant. Of course, only if the community enjoys listening to my horrible takes.
No.
For your question, what would I like to see for the community? The biggest thing I would like to see for the community is for people to take a step back, as counterintuitive as that may sound. But we're here to enjoy, well, most of us are here to enjoy the video games of our past, of our youth. For a younger audience, they are here to enjoy the relics of old time that stood the test of time pretty well. It's not that big. It's just fake internet points. And like we said at the start, I would like to see less drama. I would like to see more people prioritizing their mental and physical health, and more people to prioritize their fun over discussion and being right. And if you keep trying, this is from a player point of view, because I've been trying to use RA more as a player again lately. Yes, I also have that OCD mindset where I need all the stupid gray pictures to be colored and have their yellow border. But man, I started playing the games again to play the games. And my experiences have been so much better. And I stopped...
You're having fun again.
I'm having fun with the games. I stopped debating people over everything. I started developing again the way I want to. I don't develop what I expect DevComp wants from me so that I don't get reported for no reason.
Yeah.
It's not that deep, guys. We're here to play video games and get fake points and get a little dopamine shot. And if you don't get the dopamine shot and only frustration,
what are you doing?
Go outside, touch some grass, or like Michael Jordan would say, stop it. Get some help.
And I mean, that's unironic. Like, sure, it might sound like a shit post. It might sound like somebody being mean to you. But, like, really, if you were in the place where video games aren't scratching that itch anymore, if you're in the place where you're grinding achievements and no matter how much juice you earn, you're not feeling satisfied, it might not be something that you need to find within video games, but you need to find within your life. Step outside.
Yeah. Passion is good. Passion is great, especially if you on RA convert it to something productive. Be it, I've done everything on this site. I've done art, I've done coding, I've done events, I've done live streams. Obviously, the what we didn't mention, the Retro Olympics and Retro Colosso are live streamed weekly.
Yes.
At twitch.tv/Retro Olympics. And the plug. But yeah, passion is good. Convert it to something productive, but please produce something in your real life as well.
There's so many ways to get downtrodden and beat up upon yourself, and you would find that ultimately what you have is a need and an outlet for constructiveness and creativity. I don't care if it is knitting. I don't care if it is the smallest thing, painting. I don't care if it is building a carpentry project. I don't care if it is large, like completing a plumbing project or an electricity project. The thing is the human body has a need to be productive.
Yes.
That can be interpreted, like I said, in an artful sense, production can be bringing meaning to others through art. That is absolutely production. Production can also mean building something that is useful for yourself. Production can mean building something that makes you feel more secure. But I feel that ultimately, a lot of what we do within RA is this facsimile of production. We grind these achievements, we earn these masteries, because it feels like a pseudo-production. It feels like accomplishment. It was a challenge to get, and therefore it is valuable. And not that I'm here to diminish those achievements. Those feel fantastic. Don't get me fucking wrong. Those feel great. But what I want you to recognize is that what are you ultimately searching for is the achievement of real accomplishment. I would urge all my listeners to do just one thing this week that chops off one real life achievement. Maybe you fix something. Maybe you accomplish something. Maybe you purchased something that the family or the house needed. Maybe you repaired something. Maybe you got a chore done that you put off. But I want everybody who's listening right now to accomplish a real life achievement. That would make me feel good.
It's unfortunate that it's not in a gaming topic, but it would be nice to find some way on RA to help people as well, you know?
Yeah.
Be it to get their diet together, be it to get their fit. Maybe I'll talk to the administration if we can get a fitness channel where you can ask for diet or exercise tips.
One thing that I know was discussed previously is the idea was kicked around about doing an IRL cooking mama achievement set where you have to actually create and cook the dish and post the picture of you making the dish.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I couldn't support that more. We have people cooking food and shopping for themselves and learning how to use an actual oven in the stove, how to use spices. I would be thrilled. I'm not even fucking around. I'm not mocking anybody. I would be fucking thrilled.
I feel like this is the first podcast you have that is probably more centered around non-gaming content.
I would agree. I would argue this is the retro achievement in the sense that we're all old and we need to achieve better successes in our life.
Yeah.
And less the actual retro games. Retro achievement, we're old and we need to succeed.
Yeah, well, who knows?
But either way, Voice, I'm thrilled to have you here. Any final thoughts or last kind of things you want to wrap up for our viewers or our listeners to send them off on? We've touched on a lot, but what are those final things you want to send home with somebody? What are those, if anybody listens to this episode, if they were to take home a few sentences, what would it be?
I would say the easy road now becomes the hard road later in life, and the hard road now becomes the easy road later in life. Did I say that right?
No, I think that makes absolute sense. If you, so what we call that over here in my, I don't know if you'd call that culture or whatever, is swallowing the frog.
Yeah.
You do the hardest thing first.
Yeah.
Because then it'll become easier later.
And if you are, and this is on a mental health related note, this is on just stepping away from gaming for another moment as we've did all day today. But I know it's hard sometimes if you want to make a change, but you know, if you're trying to change your body because you're severely overweight or you're just losing power, start with 1 push-up. Next day, do 2. If you can do 2, do 1.5. If you have trouble going outside because you got glued to your comfy gaming chair and you don't feel comfortable outside, stand in front of your door, sniff some air, walk for 2 minutes, and go back inside. And every day, the struggle becomes a little bit less difficult.
When I started out, I could only do 7 push-ups, and then I felt like I was I was gasping. I was struggling. Like I said, I did nothing but lose weight, and then I became a skeleton. So I had 0 muscle mass on me, and I could only do 7 push-ups before I felt like, I'm serious. Like, it was to the point where I almost called my mother and was like, yeah, but I just laid on the ground and gasped a lot, and then I realized, like, okay, what I'm going to do is do 7 push-ups every time I feel like I have the energy to do 7 push-ups.
Yeah.
And I found I could do them like 5 or 6 times throughout the day. And every time, don't get me wrong, I fucking rolled around on the fucking carpet and was like, but that only lasted about 2 weeks. And then I could do 15 push-ups.
Yeah.
And I rolled around doing 15. And then I could do 30. And I rolled around wanting to die doing 30. And then I could do 40 and 50. And then I was eventually up to 65 push-ups in one go. And at that point, I would lay down and feel like I deserved to feel like I wanted to fucking die because holy shit, I just did 65 push-ups.
Yeah. And I don't think we are, because people might think we are trying to motivate people to become jacked.
No.
Or we're trying to motivate people to lose weight per se because they're maybe overweight.
I literally just want you to live long. I want you to live long.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're big, you're small, you're short, you're tall, you're heavy, you're thin. I just want you to live long.
And it's also what you said earlier about the pseudo accomplishment that you get from RA. It's great to get some meaning out of RA, but real life is at the end of the day.
It's a facsimile.
Yeah, it's. We were talking about the future of technology in one of the breaks.
Yeah.
Some individuals that warned us of danger of AI and technology, and
imagine
guys.
a world where you're enraptured and you get points and a little bit of a jingle and a sound cue and a graphical thing for taking a shit. And I know that sounds silly on the surface, but there will be a time, say 100 years from now, where we will be awarding people for doing something as simple as that.
We're already doing that with sounding like a boomer now. That's social media time.
It's disappointing.
That's TikTok. Look, I made cupcakes out of an instant baking mix. Like.
I just don't understand. What I would plead to the listeners, what I would plead to the people who are here right now is just understand that if you have even the most basic rudimentary concept of consciousness, if you care for the people you love, if you have the will to improve, even though it's hard, I'm not saying you can do it. I'm not saying if you can improve. I'm saying if you want to improve, if you struggle every day, if you seek it out, if you try, might not be easy. But if you have this in you, if you have the will to overcome, the will to improve, the will to be better as a person, it's not being better and right or wrong. It's just trying to improve oneself. There was a philosopher that once said something along the lines of, a man who does not live to see his best physical self does not deserve life. And it was one of those things just in the concept of you were given a gift. You can improve yourself. You can make yourself stronger. And we all should, to defend those we love and the things we believe in. And things are only going to get tougher. I'm not trying to bring it down near the end of the episode, but, we got a little real.
I've had tons of motivational ideas to keep myself going, but one of the few that I always keep falling back to in terms of keep taking care of myself, right? Both mentally and physically, is I want to be able to walk my daughter down the altar.
Yes.
And I want to be able to do everything with my son that he wants to do, be it physical exercise or supporting him. Obviously, same for my daughter. And even when I have my grandkids, I want to be able to play basketball with them. I want to be able to show them what grandpa can still do and be an inspiration for them instead of being the grandpa that they walk in that can't move out of his chair, needs his cane to move to them.
No. For me, I'm right there with you. For me, I take it a little bit one step beyond my own lineage, and I try to say, I want to be the elder that people can turn to and rely on for advice, for guidance, rather than be the elder that is crotchety and not there, and you understand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's a good man.
I think we have similar guidances there, voice. I think we have similar outcomes. it's the mark of a good man, as you just said, even though it was joking. I think a lot of the times we joke about the things that we're most serious of because it's hard to be in full honest with those things that are tough.
Yeah, it's sad that the one episode you go this deep, you're gonna get cancelled for having me as a guest. I'm sorry.
Demonetized! No, it's all right. But Chance, I was so happy to have you here. The things we dove in on, we got so deep on.
Great.
We had a lot of discussions. We've got a lot to look forward to. We've got the next season of Retro Olympics a little over a year and a half from now. We've got the Retro Colosso coming up in the near future.
Yeah.
I'm just thrilled to have you on here. You've been a staple in the community for so long. To get your perspective on these situations was invaluable. I would only ask for these, give us a couple sentences to go away on, and I'd be happy to wrap it up.
At this point, we've said so much, and we might as well bring it back to the community, because at the end of the day, that's what RA is for. So I just want to shout out to a couple of people that have made my RA experience really pleasurable over the years, both inactive nowadays or semi-active and very active. Holy Shinks was my first friend when I came to RA and welcomed me into the site. Like I said, Sero is I consider him a very good friend, even though they're not as active anymore as we both used to be. I can name tons of people. Hotscroc did great work in the past and is still active behind the scenes. But most of all, and that goes outside of the community and outside of my dev career, because, there's a lot of work and hours that I put into RA or the Olympics. But a thank you to my wife for always inspiring me to be a better person, to strive to do better. Scolds me when I'm trolling in general chat and calling people stupid or calling them out on their stupid behavior. But she makes me a better man, and I'm very grateful.
Well, boys, I couldn't be happier to have you here. I have the equal amount of same people I'd like to shout out, and just to remain impartial, you know who you are. It's the people I've hung out with a long time. If I've ever watched UFC with you, you know who I'm talking to. That being said, this has been the Retro Achievements Podcast. Write into retroachievementspodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to receive listener mail. Anything you write in could have the potential to be read out on air. I can give thoughts, opinions, questions. If you have topics or guests you have in mind who would you like to have on, happy to hear it. But until then, folks, this has been Time Crush and Voice of Autumn, and we will see you all next time.